So another week of Daima and another update about demon politics. This series loves to give us an insight into the inner relation of the three demon realms, doesn't it? And its inhabitants. First of all, we have the first royal confirmation. Panzy is indeed a princess, something we aren't too surprised about, as she was giving off princessy vibes, and this is a common Toriyama trope, to have someone like her accompany the main cast, and many people have pointed out she is a good mix of Chi-Chi and Bulma, so good shout out there. Also, she's good with machines, which brings out not only Bulma to mind, but also a certain character from Sandland, but we'll get to that when we eventually release our Sandland reviews. We've had them on the docket for months, but a lot has happened since. Anyway, let's get back to Daima. So yeah, for now, Panzy is a very classic Toriyama character, with her father, King Kadan, also fitting in some of the common tropes. Although he isn't a big softy like the Ox King, as we can see him playing golf with the skulls of other demons, which in of itself actually is kind of metal, we do know that he wants to overthrow Gomah. I mean, who at this point doesn't? It seems to be very made clear. And he also seems to be a rather decent ruler. Maybe not totally benevolent, but definitely treating his subjects better than Gomah does through the gendarmerie. Speaking about King Kadan, have you noticed that some of those wolfmen working for him resemble the likes of Bergamo from Universe 9? I mean, we have seen these species before in Daima already, but the more I see them, the bigger indicator I'm getting is that maybe this could be the demonic origins of the Trio de Danger. Also, Sidra, their god of destruction, another spiky-eared individual. Come to think about it, Team Universe 9 had that monster demonic vibe to it. That is quite interesting, but maybe we're going far too away from the main topic of today, which is of course demon politics. So, as we've established, we do have Panzy and her father representing the royalty of the third demon world, but now we know that Glorio was the one to suggest bringing Goku and his friends to the realm. Not only that, but the monarch wasn't aware of the Saiyan being turned into a smaller, more marketable form, I mean a child. Things like that really set off our Glorio alert. But to be fair, I discussed that in my main episode 5 review, as well as our discussion from last week. But one additional question does come up. What kind of magic does he know? As we learned that all demons can perform at least one type of magic, maybe more. Needless to say, we're more and more convinced that he might be working for Dr. Arin Su or with her. We can also get the vibe from him, Gloria, that despite working with, and not quite for as we previously thought, King Kadan, he doesn't have the highest regard for the monarch himself. The whole mafia boss moniker, which he gave him in the presence of Panzy, was rather awkward, but it did demonstrate one interesting trait about the character that we previously missed. He does have that high society feel about him. He might consider himself the better of the demons in the third world. He's not openly hostile, but accusing someone of savagery and barbarism is rather telling. Also, another interesting tidbit that we learnt is that no, Shin is not a special type of glint, as Panzy mentioned, that a greater exodus took place, which makes us believe that the retcon is indeed deep and far-reaching regarding Shin. I still would like to know how they managed to establish themselves as supreme Kaithro throughout multiple universes. We haven't figured that out yet. Also, we have the confirmation of the regular lifespan in the demon realm, which is about 1,000 years give or take, which makes Shin very, very old by comparison, as he is speculated to be millions of years old. However, the ship made us believe that he was more on a solo mission, so maybe he was a later addition to the population outside of the demon realm. After all, it could be easily the other way around. Maybe Glint are indeed, in fact, from here, but the offshoot that has left it originally became the core people, with Shin running away and finding them at some point, who they would evolve into. Or maybe the guidebook lore doesn't matter anymore, and we shouldn't be all that worried about it, but still, we are going to cross-reference it until it is completely discarded, as we think it is quite fun trying to fit it in. So yeah, that's if you wonder why we are holding on so tightly to the old stuff. We won't be mad if it's all gone though, it's a form of us having fun. But do you know who else does seem to be having a surprising amount of fun lately? Dende. He has his own storyteller to read him books and a rather comfy cradle and toys, something that we would not expect from Gomah of all people. Yeah, he does it because of selfish desires and a rather clever realization. Dende could make him more Dragon Ball, so he is going to treat the kid well. On one hand, it shows that the little imp is smarter than we gave him credit for, but also, he's not as cruel as we previously thought. Yes, his gendarmerie is pretty bad, but not only do the demons have centuries of years to spare, the very existence of those reservoirs do seem to confirm that the stolen years can be returned. We think that at the end of the series, Gomah and Degesu might get some sort of redemption coming about them, with the Glind maybe making peace with his brother, and Gomah, well, realizing that maybe he isn't king material after all, that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. You would expect him to make Dende's life miserable, but no, he's not cartoonishly evil and rather pragmatic. It's rather kind of refreshing. I mean, imagine what Frieza would do with the baby Namekian. I mean, I'd rather not think about it, heck. Imagine what King Vegeta would— oh no, he would have certainly stabbed that baby! But Gomah is still an insecure egomaniac that needs to be stopped. Apparently, the life of the inhabitants is even worse than under Deborah, which says something, but he is not the main villain here. Now we are convinced of that for sure. But now, Neva, Arin Su, and even Gloria are our prime suspects. These three seem much more like schemers, and the little guy is simply a puppet and an obstacle. It might be, obviously, maybe Arinsu and Neva are working together. Also, have you noticed that the demon realm, whilst dangerous, is not really evil and it's actually kinda quirky? It's kinda like Sandland's demons and world, which the longer I think about it, the more I am convinced that one of the reasons why Akio Iyoku pushed so hard for this manga to be put on the small screen is to pave the way for Daima, as there are some very clear similarities, especially in the third demon world. Also, it seems that indeed the order of inheriting control over the demon realm could be tied to either familial ties, or in case where an heir would be missing, it could be taken by one of the lesser rulers of the lower demon worlds, as it does seem that King Kadan does have some claim to the throne after all. Which makes me think that Gomah was simply the ruler of the first demon world, and became the supreme king while Deborah was gone. Those roles are separate, but obviously, when there are no other candidates, you go for the guy that is governing over the most elite of the three realms by default. Also, it does seem that you can deceive Warp Summer, which is another interesting tidbit. And we haven't really been talking about everyone's favourite newly found fish yet, but I do wonder who installed him, as we know that the travel wasn't always prohibited. But the gateways to the three demon worlds do seem to have that Zeno-esque aesthetic, which is quite interesting. Could the king of everything had something to do with this? But did the demons lock themselves out after so many of their inhabitants left, or did someone lock them in? Were they punished, or was it one of the demon kings that made this decision to lock out the worlds and make it complicated? Do keep in mind that Warp Summer doesn't seem to be particularly bothered by Gomah's position, and maintains an aura of authority over him, so maybe indeed they were put there by higher powers. Everything we see does put the existence of the demon realm into question. Why is it really there? Originally, it was the place to govern evil and a punishment camp for the evil Kaioshins, but right now, it's not that at all. It's a rather exotic plane of existence where inhabitants are, well, more complicated than simply good or bad. Are they a victim of negative propaganda? After all, if Glins escaped from here, they wouldn't have had very fond memories of the place, and might exaggerate parts of it. So after these 5 episodes, what do we think about the state of the demon realm? Well, we haven't seen anything from the second demon world as of now, but for the moment, we know that although the untimely demise of Deborah might have caused some relief for their inhabitants, it also started a chain reaction that is going to change this dimension forever. Yeah, I mean, it does sound kinda obvious, but for all we know about it so far, the change had to come from outside, and that might be one of the reasons why Arin Su wanted the Z Fighters there in the first place. As a scientist, she is naturally a progressivist. Whether or not she does this for her own selfish desires or some greater vision to save the realm, it's unclear, but for now, Occam's razor. She is the one that wanted this all to come to pass. But the question is, why exactly? And what is her deal with being on Earth? I think the most surprising factor of Daima so far is that we don't see that much of our three conspirators after episode 1. They are more in the background doing their own things, while our heroes are busy with the world itself. It isn't a flaw, it's just the direction is different than we expected. We do hope, however, that in later parts, Gomah, Degisu, and Dr. Arin Su will get more screen time, as they are quite entertaining in of themselves. Now, we're not trying to pretend that we know all of the answers as to where Daima will lead us, but in a way, it's still really exciting. For the first time, character motivations and the inner workings of the world that we are in are more important than multi-episode battles. I'm pretty sure that these will come in the tail end of the series to give everyone something that they might like, but for now, we really enjoyed the ride, and as stated in the episode, this one, the third demon world is the largest, so obviously our heroes are going to spend more time there. And it also seems the ones living there are the least privileged, as even their palaces resemble a rugged desert fortress more than anything else. We're really curious to see if the other two worlds are more decadent than this. Yes, we saw Gomah's palace, but not much else, to be quite honest. Once we will explore the entire thing, we will try to figure out what all these three worlds symbolize, as the triad of heaven, hell, and purgatory seems way too obvious. Also, we do hope that we will learn more about the real Deborah, the one we hadn't really met due to Barbady's mind control. And from what Panzy said, he wasn't really liked in the court of King Kadan, but it does seem that he at least was seen fit to rule, as in, yeah, sure, he was unpopular, but at least he governed fairly. And also keep in mind, according to Z, he was taken by Barbady centuries ago. Yes, we know that centuries here are not a big deal, at least in terms of a demon. But in our world, if the head of a power was traveling abroad for over a year, that would certainly be a cause for concern, wouldn't it? And I do wonder if his absence is even going to be getting addressed. Finally, the Tamagamis. In the center of it all lie 3 Dragon Balls protected by insanely strong guardians. The Dragon Balls that have never been before wished on, and the Dragon Balls that have a gatekeeping system built in. While we know that originally a wish on Porunga was meant to be a pride for the strongest Namekian warriors, what is Neva's deal exactly? And after Granola the Survivors arc, I have a hard time trusting in sets of Dragon Balls that are not made of 7 individual balls. There has to be a trick or catch somewhere. And knowing that both Glorio and King Kadan seem rather excited by the prospect of making a wish on the Dragon Balls, well, I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen. Also, keep in mind that Kadan says in the episode that no one before has collected all 3, which leads me to believe that there might be someone who had defeated at least one of the 3 Guardians. Well, yeah, questions for later. For now, the Demon Realm is in rather interesting situations or turmoil, and we cannot wait for the next episode, especially with that super cool Minotaur being teased at the end of it. But anyway, what did you think? Do you like Panzy as a character? Has your opinion on the main villain changed at all? And what is the true purpose of the Demon Realm? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!